Everyone told me I was destroying my life. And they were right, just not in the way they thought. What I'm about to tell you happened behind closed doors for 9 years, and the day it finally broke open, I realized I had been the one holding the key the whole time. My name is Coralie Westergaard. I grew up in a town called Brindlehurst, in the kind of house where the curtains matched the sofa and nobody ever talked about anything real. My mother, Vivian, believed in two things above everything else: appearances and bloodlines. She had a gift for making both feel sacred and immovable, like walls built out of granite rather than fear. My father, Oswald, was quieter, a man who had learned over 40 years of marriage that silence was the price of peace. My brother, Fenwick, was simply Vivian's echo, a creature shaped entirely by approval. I met Demarian Achebe when I was 26 at a conference on environmental policy in Portland. He was presenting a paper on water equity in sub-Saharan infrastructure, and he spoke the way some people pray, with total conviction and zero performance. I noticed the room leaning toward him. I noticed I was leaning too. We talked afterward for 4 hours. He had a way of asking questions that felt like he genuinely wanted to know the answer, which sounds ordinary until you realize how rarely people actually do that. We dated for 14 months. I did not tell my family for the first 6. Not out of shame. I want to be precise about that, but out of protection. Protection for something that was still becoming itself. When I finally told Vivian, we were at Sunday lunch. She set her fork down very carefully, as if she were handling evidence. "Is this serious?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She picked the fork back up. "He's not one of us, Coralie." She said it with the calm authority of someone stating geography. Not hateful, not explosive, just final. I asked her what that meant. She did not answer directly. She said she hoped I understood what I was risking. My father studied his plate. Fenwick glanced at me once and then away, with the particular cowardice of someone who knows better and does nothing. Demarian and I married on a Thursday in October in a courthouse in Seattle, with 2 witnesses who were strangers volunteered by the clerk. I wore a second-hand silk dress the color of old ivory. He wore a navy suit and the expression of a man who understood completely what was being asked of him and said yes anyway. I did not invite my family, not because I was afraid, because I already knew what they would bring. My mother called once, the week after. She told me I had made my choice and that choices had consequences. She did not call again for 9 years, 4 months, and 17 days. I am not guessing. I counted. Those years were not a tragedy. I want to be honest about that too, because the story would be easier, perhaps more satisfying to some, if I told you I suffered enormously. The truth is that I built a life so full it became its own kind of argument. Demarian was obsessive about his work in a way that I found contagious rather than exhausting. He was building a company called Luma Hydrologic, which developed low-cost water filtration systems for communities without reliable infrastructure. He operated with a kind of focused patience that I had never seen before in a person. He woke at 5, ran 4 miles, worked until midnight, read until he fell asleep. On weekends, he cooked elaborate West African dishes for our small circle of friends. Jollof rice with fried plantain, egusi stew that took 3 hours and made the whole apartment smell like something warm and ancient. He laughed easily, and often at himself. We had a daughter, Isolde, born when I was 31. She had my jaw and his eyes, and from about 8 months old, she had opinions about everything. She refused certain foods, not because she disliked them, but because she seemed to find the colors insulting. She was, from the very beginning, her own entire person. My mother sent a card for Isolde's birth. No message inside, just her name in her precise handwriting, Vivian Westergaard, as if she were signing a legal document rather than acknowledging a grandchild. I put the card in a box in the closet. The box did not grow heavy for a long time. Demarian's company was not an overnight success. I watched him lose 2 major investors in the same year, pivot the product twice, and survive a patent challenge that took 16 months and very nearly broke us financially. We ate a lot of lentils during that period. Isolde, who was 4 at the time, became very opinionated about lentils. She called them the boring circles and demanded we make them interesting, which led to an ongoing experiment with spices that continued long after the financial pressure lifted. We still make those lentils now. We call them Isolde's circles, and they are genuinely excellent. Luma Hydrologic went public in March, on a Tuesday. I remember the exact quality of the morning light, that thin, cautious Pacific Northwest light that never quite commits to warmth before noon. Demarion called me from the office at 7:30. He said, "It's real." And then, after a pause, "I don't know what to do with that." "Neither do I said. We sat on the phone in silence for a moment, just breathing. The valuation was reported in several outlets. Net worth attributed to Demarion, $44 million. It was not a number I had a relationship with. I kept trying to translate it into something I could hold. Groceries, car payments, Isolde's future tuition, and it kept expanding past the edges of any frame I tried to put around it. Within 2 weeks of the IPO, my mother showed up at our door. I did not know she was coming. She had not called, had not written, had not sent any signal at all. It was a Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen, drinking coffee, watching Isolde in the backyard building something elaborate with sticks and 3 rocks she had named. Demarion was still asleep. I heard the doorbell and opened it, and there she was, Vivian Westergaard, 71 years old, wearing a pale blue coat and holding a leather portfolio that I had never seen before. She looked older than I had tracked in my mind. The years had not been unkind exactly. She had always been a woman who maintained herself with the precision of someone who believed erosion was a moral failure. But there was something underneath the maintenance now, something that had shifted in the architecture of her face. She looked like a building that had been reinforced from the outside, but had quiet structural problems inside that no one had addressed. "Coralie," she said. "Vivian," I said. She flinched at the name. She had always been Mom to me. The shift was deliberate, and she registered it. She asked if she could come inside. I stood in the doorway for what felt like a very long time, but was probably 4 seconds. I stepped aside. She came in and looked around the house. It was a good house, not extravagant, but warm, with Demarion's books everywhere and Isolde's drawings framed on the walls, and a particular amber rug in the living room that I had bought at a market in Nairobi 2 years earlier. She looked at all of it with the expression of someone appraising rather than seeing. She sat at the kitchen table without being invited to. She placed the leather portfolio in front of her and folded her hands over it. "You look well," she said. "I am," I said. I stayed standing. I did not offer coffee. There was a pause. Through the kitchen window, I could see Isolde crouching over her construction project, deeply focused, talking quietly to herself. "I've been following what Demarion has built," Vivian said. She said his name carefully, like someone using a word in a foreign language for the first time in public. "I know," I said. I assumed. She opened the portfolio. Inside was a list, handwritten in that precise script of hers, on cream stationery. She slid it across the table toward me. I looked at it. I did not pick it up. It was a list of requests. That is the cleanest word for what it was. There were 11 items. A cash gift to help Fenwick's failing restaurant business. A trust fund established for her and Oswald. A family property on the Oregon coast that she had always wanted, but never been able to afford. College funds for Fenwick's children, my nieces and nephews I had never met. A family vacation, paid in full, with flights and accommodation. Several other items in the same vein. At the bottom, her signature, as if the document were binding. I looked at the list for a long time. I was very aware of the silence in the room, and of Isolde's voice drifting in from the garden. She was narrating her construction project now, a steady, earnest monologue about structural integrity. I picked the list up. I turned it over. The back was blank. I set it down again, face down, blank side up. "Vivian," I said, "I want to tell you something, and I'd like you to really hear it." She arranged herself into the expression of someone preparing to be gracious. 9 years ago, you told me that my husband was not one of you. You were correct. He is not. He is something you don't have a category for. A person who builds things that actually matter, who gets up before dawn every day, not because someone is watching, but because he believes the work is worth doing. He is someone who has never, in 9 years of marriage, made me feel like a problem to be managed. He cooked for me when I was sick, laughed at my terrible jokes, cried at Isolde's birth in a way that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. He is the most decent human being I have ever met, and you have never once asked me about him. Not one time. Not a phone call, not a letter. Not even, in 9 years, a single question about whether I was okay. She opened her mouth. I raised one hand, not aggressively, just a clear signal that I was not finished. I don't need an apology from you, I said. I stopped needing that somewhere around year 3. What I need you to understand clearly before you leave is that this, I gestured at the list, still face down on the table, is not something I'm going to do. Not because we can't afford it, because you don't get to treat an entire decade of your daughter's life as if it didn't happen, and then walk in with a portfolio and a list. That's not how any of this works. Vivian looked at the overturned list. Her jaw was doing something I had never seen it do. A small, barely controlled movement, like something underneath was pressing at a door. "You're angry," she said. "No," I said, and I was surprised to find it was true. "I'm clear. There's a difference." From outside, Isolde called my name, delighted about something. I held up a finger, one moment, and she went back to her project, satisfied. Vivian looked toward the window, toward the yard, toward Isolde, and something in her face broke. Not dramatically. It was not a movie moment. It was quieter and worse than that. It was the kind of breaking that happens when a person finally stops pretending to themselves, and the thing they were pretending falls away, and what's underneath is smaller and less certain than what they showed the world. "I don't know her," Vivian said, and her voice was different now. The architecture was gone. "I don't know my own granddaughter." "No," I said. "You don't." A long silence. "Is that," she started. "That's your question to sit with," I said, "not mine to answer." I walked to the front door and opened it, not angrily, not triumphantly, just clearly. Vivian stood. She picked up the portfolio. She walked to the door and paused in the threshold, the way she had always paused in thresholds, as if calculating the correct exit. "She has your jaw," she said, looking toward the backyard. "She does," I said. Vivian walked down the front path. She did not look back. I closed the door. I stood in the hallway for a moment. Demarion appeared at the top of the stairs in his worn gray t-shirt, sleep-creased, holding his water bottle. "Who was that?" he said. "My mother," I said. He came downstairs. He looked at my face for a moment, reading it with the precision he'd developed over 10 years of paying close attention to me. "You okay?" he said. "Yeah," I said, and then, "Actually, yes, I really am." He put his arm around me. We stood there for a moment, and through the kitchen window, we could both see Isolde, still narrating her project, still entirely absorbed in the serious business of building something out of sticks and named rocks. "She's going to be an engineer," Demarion said. "Or a storyteller," I said. "Both," he said. "Definitely both." I have not spoken with Vivienne since that morning. She called twice in the weeks after. I let the calls go to voicemail. The messages were not apologies. They were repositionings, attempts to reframe what had happened, to renegotiate from a different angle. I listened to both of them once and deleted them. Fenwick sent a text that said, "She's not doing well. Maybe reach out." I did not respond. Oswald sent a card, handwritten this time, no name printed, just a long letter that surprised me. He said he had been ashamed of himself for years. He said he had told himself that staying quiet was neutral, was harmless, and he had been wrong, and he knew it, and he was sorry. He said he understood if I never replied. He said he thought Demarion sounded like a real man. I wrote back to Oswald. It took me 4 drafts and about a week. We have spoken on the phone twice since. He has not met Isolde yet. That is not closed, exactly, but it is not open yet either. We are somewhere in between, which is where most true things live. Demarion does not know the full contents of the list Vivian brought. I told him she came, I told him what I said, I told him how it ended. I did not show him the list because I did not want the number of her audacity to become a story we carried. He asked once if I wanted to talk through it more. I said I thought I was okay. He said he'd follow my lead. He always follows my lead on things that are mine to carry, and he always offers first, which is the right order. Isolde knows she has grandparents she has never met. She has asked about it twice. Both times I have told her the truth in terms she could hold. That sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people they love, and that sometimes those choices take a very long time to undo, if they ever get undone at all. She accepted this with the pragmatism of a child who trusts that the world makes some sense, even when the specific mechanism is temporarily unclear. She named the tallest rock in her backyard Project Oswald. I did not explain why I laughed at that. She found my laughter satisfying regardless. There is a version of this story where I reconcile with my mother, and it becomes about redemption and the healing power of forgiveness. I have thought about that version. I understand the appeal of it, but the true version does not end there, at least not yet, because forgiveness, real forgiveness, not the performed kind, does not operate on a list of demands. It operates on honesty, on patience, on the slow, unglamorous work of people deciding to actually see each other. Maybe Vivian gets there someday. Maybe she doesn't. Either way, I have a life that I built with someone I chose completely, and a daughter who narrates her own construction projects with total seriousness, and a husband who makes jollof rice on Sunday mornings and asks real questions and means them. That is not consolation. That is the thing itself. I didn't lose my family when I married Demarion. I found out what my family actually was, which is a different thing entirely, and far more useful. If this story made you feel something real, hit like and subscribe. What comes next is worth staying for.